Following this, we have a distinguished representative from DMAC, Ashish Kalkar. He's the lead architect. He would talk about the future of glass and related building technology in architecture. Ashish, the stage is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the panel for choosing me or giving me the opportunity to come in front of all of you and do a very small presentation about a very interesting topic, which I keep sharing with not only people like you, but also with my students wherever I go for jury, because I believe that the future is something that is always going to provide vision to all of us who are working in this industry today. So the line of this conversation is more of interaction and putting forward a few findings that I came across when I was trying to find solutions for the problems that were presented to me by not only my organization, but even the previous ones where I was working. So let's understand from the perspective of an architect or a designer, the challenges that we usually put in front of the engineers, like many of you who are present over here. And it's a very interesting clash, right? Where an architect comes saying, this is my creativity and just help me realize. And the engineers say, well, why are you daydreaming? What is such a big issue? I mean, why can't you think straight? And we go back saying, if we think straight, we will be engineers, not architects. So this clash keeps going on, and I believe this clash itself brings in a lot in terms of creativity and value to the industries that we work with, and glass being one of them. So if I begin this topic by saying that I'm not only going to present to you the fact findings or some of the encounters that I had with the industry professionals about the future of glass and the related building technology, but also the fact that this is maybe just one drop in the ocean, and there might be many other stuff that I myself am yet to learn. I think, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I'm saying this. So let's go ahead and understand where we have come from where. I'm not sure whether, a few of you know this, but Hyde Park, London, year 1851, Crystal Palace, is the first modern glass building that many consider as the starting point from where glass started becoming one of the sought-after materials in the building industry. We did have churches where we had, big, glasses and all on the windows and facades like that, but this, I would say, is the first building where it was taken as a very interesting building facade material, so the building itself stands out because of glass. To where we reach today, where glass has become a very, very interesting material. It can bend, it can do various forms, it can do various shapes, it can realize a lot of dreams that people like me from the architectural fraternity are trained for. But when you go from this place to this place, when you go from 1851 to what we are doing today, it's a long journey. And this journey wouldn't have been possible if some idiots from the industry wouldn't have thought out of the box, right? So I would say that maybe our industry is an interesting one where the idiots usually pioneer the way forward. And we are the ones who try to create future, and we see that today without knowing whether it is possible or not. It's a very interesting way of putting it when I say idiot, because not necessarily idiots are really supposed to be written off. They shape the world in a way. So I want to talk about one interesting problem that we had to solve in one of the buildings which I was working on, where a lot of glasses started falling off, and there were a lot of spontaneous breakage of glass that was encountered by the site people, and they came back saying, guys, there is something wrong. We have to do a lot of testing. We have to do replacement of glass and stuff like that. It's more of an engineering issue, not an architectural. But that came as a question mark from people like me who don't have any engineering background to the industry guys, that hang on guys, is it not possible that we do something by which we prevent breakage completely? Is it possible? It went to the point where there was a technology that I read about in the newspapers, which is getting very common for the mobiles. The mobile screens are getting developed in a way where if at all there is a spontaneous crack in the mobile screen, or if it falls off and there is a proper crack in it, you don't have to really change it. It will heal on its own. It's very interesting for us to know what that technology is. And in the layman's language, not an engineer's, what I came to know is it's a resin that gets infused in the form of small bubbles within that particular glass. It's a film glass, so it's not as thick as the construction glass that we have. But there is something that goes inside. So if there is a breakage, the bubble will simply take out the resin, which is inside of it, and slowly it will heal the whole glass. Very interesting for people like us, right? Because if we can prevent glass from breaking completely, at least for extended period of time, I think it is going to really help us a lot, for sure. Because replacement of breaking of glass is one of the problems that we always encounter. And defect liability periods or the warranties and all, whatever you may put in, on paper, eventually when the glass is broken, for people from developers' side, we always find this problem where we have to evacuate people, we have to seal the whole facade, we have to bring the new glass, we have to put it back. There's a lot of engineering, a lot of problems involved on site. So this is a very interesting thing that I wanted to talk about, along with some of the other things that came across, which is basically like the kind of technologies that we are developing now. And that's the reason I say, okay, what next? This question of what next is something that keeps driving all of us, right? And the more questions we would raise from our side, the more answers or the more quest for finding that answer will be there on board. And I think that is where exactly we should put our efforts on. Technology is developing at a very, very high pace. Sometimes they say that the humans are lagging behind the technology, and it's possible that a human brain cannot store all the information and all the technology that is available in the world today, and we will start lacking behind to the extent where we'll have to really make efforts to catch up. Maybe we'll be only able to sleep like 2 or 3 hours a day as the day progresses, or as the time progresses. So what next? The answer is collective efforts. So let's see some of the efforts that came together from my team on the questions that were raised, likewise. BIPV, the Building Integrated Photovoltaic Panel System. It's a very interesting encounter with architect Daniel Libeskind that I was fortunate to have in Singapore. This is way back in 2012, when I went to see one of his very, very beautiful projects out there called the Reflections by Keppel Bay, if I'm recollecting the name correctly. And while having this conversation, he just came out with a topic saying, well, Singapore is something else. Like, the place is fairly okay in terms of climate, and we are able to do a lot out here. What about your side of the world, Dubai? You have so much in Dubai in the form of solar energy availability. Why don't you do something with it? So the conversation went along the lines of sustainability and all those things. And then he came back with a very interesting question for me, that if you are always complaining as an architect that the Gulf part of the world somehow is obsessed with glass buildings, and they should take away that obsession because you are just burning so much of energy and you are just trying to create buildings that are not environmentally sustainable. Is there a way to think exactly the reverse? Can we take advantage of what sells here as a product, which is proven since last few decades, and we create something out of it which will make sure that the building is actually not a misplace? I didn't understand his words then, but then out of nowhere, about 6 or 7 years down the line, I read about this particular project. And I was fortunate to again have a word with him in last couple of years, where he explained where he came from for this particular one. It's called Artery Business Center, which is in Lithuania. Not a very highly known country and all, but these guys are really doing very good experiments as well. You see, what he did is, along with certain technologically advanced labs out there in the US, like MIT and all, he himself is a professor, so he interacts a lot with industry people, students, and such engineers and all. He put up a question in front of them: how can we make glass and solar panel go together as one system? Is there a way? Because the perception is that if you put a solar panel, the glass will become opaque. If you put a glass and a solar panel, it will start reflecting on the building elevation as some sort of a pattern. Will it be aesthetically pleasing? And third thing is, after doing all of this, putting solar, putting stuff like that, are we really going to gain something out of it? Is it going to really generate enough energy for us to make sure that whatever we lose from the building gets gained back and we somewhere reach carbon neutral, if not carbon positive? So this particular project is extremely interesting one, where the system that they used, the BIPV, is a one where a few glass panels, and the percentage of this is decided on the basis of calculations, gets integrated with solar panels in the middle. The DGUs have solar panel integrated within the whole system, and it starts generating energy. So your facade is generating energy for yourself. Now let's ask a question to all the engineers here, all the architects, all the creative people out here. Is it possible that we put up a big skyscraper in Abu Dhabi or Dubai or anywhere in the Gulf region, and the skyscraper is just sustaining on its own energy? That is something that is going to create the best building possible for this environment, right? So whatever was taken as a negative, or whatever still some people find very, I would say not so pleasing in the form of those big glass buildings coming up here and there, can be converted into energy cells. And the whole city is kind of an energy center. And you never know, maybe the technology will advance to the extent where the buildings will actually start, supplying energy to the power grids, to the signals, to the roads, to everything. Imagine that, and then imagine the smart city concept that we always put together. Something really, really interesting, right? So this building, as per what Daniel told to me, generates 100% energy that it requires on the basis of this facade. This facade generates everything that the building needs. So anything that the building wants for its operation is not taken from the city, it's not taken from the central power grid. And this is in Lithuania. I'm sure we have much, much better solar quality out here in UAE and also in the Gulf region, right? Something very interesting for me. This one is, again, it's coming out of another interesting conversation with my friends back in Philippines, where the government is trying to encourage people to think out of the box, to create something that addresses the problem of extremely densely developed cities. Usually the problems in these densely developed cities is that you can't suddenly raise out everything and start building from zero. And if you are very close to the buildings next door, it's always a problem of privacy. Sometimes people say that okay, you have a big glass facade and it's giving a lot of heat inside, so on and so forth. So is there a way by which we don't really take away the density of development, but create something that will, address all these issues? Because the issues are from the end users. This is more of inside out than outside in. This particular technology is very interesting because the government of Philippines, interestingly, is working very closely with the architects on this, as long as what I know. What it does is, it creates a system of DGU where the space between the two glass panels gets a layer. Now this particular layer you can control with BMU, to make sure that the tinting of glass is controlled. Now, I'm not an engineer, so I have to really read out certain things out here which is like, beyond my understanding in terms of engineering. They say that these glass panels in the middle will change its tinting, which means that if I want to see an absolutely transparent glass, I want to really have like, the full view open for myself, the glass should just become like, just like, say, any glass which we use in the interior. If, you have a very hot day and the sunlight is really hitting the glass facade from outside, instead of drawing the blinds down, you should just control the tinting in a way where it starts becoming good enough for you, so you don't lose the vision completely. You don't have to really draw in the panels of fabric. I'm sleeping in my house in the night. Maybe I can just adjust the tinting in a way where nobody will see me from outside, or nobody will disturb me, but still I'll maintain my view. Something really interesting, and you can see in the picture, it's the same glazing without having to differ between the tinting of the two glasses. It's the same glazing. It's just about you controlling through BMU, and it can be done to the extent of single panel, to the whole facade, to the whole building, whichever way you want. Now, this problem is something that came out of a need. Our chairman in the MAC is extremely fond of facades that are really thin, that don't take like a lot of space. Now, the question that we have to ask to ourselves is, why do we have this depth of system on the facades? It comes out of, obviously, the assembly of DGU and the mullions on the back. Very often you'll see that the guys will say, the engineers will say that, hang on, like, you have a DGU, it's very heavy. We have a 3 meter by 2.5 meter kind of a DGU. We'll have to hold it. But how will you hold? The mullion has to be strong. I need a 150 mm depth of the mullion, so on and so forth. The entire system of facade starts becoming deeper and deeper and deeper. If no, okay, I need to have a steel inside of it. We very often encountered these issues, and even from some of the clients with whom I worked when I was working in the consultancy background, this question used to always pop out. Why this depth? Why don't you want something that is as thin as maybe what you see in the showrooms, the shop front glasses? Now, technically asking for this is very, challenging for the engineers. They will always come back with their calculations. But then some of the engineers have come back with ideas like this. It's not yet very common in our industry, but yes, it is being experimented right now in some of the parts of Europe. What you see over here is a layer between the two glasses, which is vacuum sealed. So what you see on the left-hand side picture is that a panel is integrated in the middle, which holds those two glasses together. Now, what that panel does is, it acts as a PVB layer in a way. So if there is a problem with the glass and all, you can easily, ensure that the glass doesn't fall off. It makes sure that you don't need the air gap in the middle, and the performance is taken partly by that panel itself. So whatever you do with the glass and whatever you can't do with the glass, for which you add those air gaps and all, is taken care by this particular panel in the middle. And this thing is sealed together through vacuum, which means it becomes a very robust DGU that you can put on the facade. I don't know whether this technology is very common, or whether this technology is possible in skyscrapers, or whether it is limited only to villas and stuff like that, because it is under development. But interestingly enough, what it does is, it reduces the weight of glass assembly, the DGU assembly, drastically. So if you reduce the depth of system, and if you limit it to 75 to 80 mm, 100 mm max, I think you are adding a lot of value to the real estate. So the developers are definitely not going to reject this idea. And as time goes along, I'm sure we'll have better technologies to encounter the commercial issues and warranty issues and stuff like that. But a very interesting reply from a friend of mine who's working in this facade technology field in London. This is being experimented right now out there in London, by the way. Something very, very interesting for me. This is what I was saying at the beginning of my speech, where the self-healing glass is something that is sought after as the next technology in our industry. And there is another thing that you may see out here. What this show on the slide is an experimental piece of glass, the cut and the healed part. Idea is that right now this is being experimented more for the automobile industry and mobile industry and stuff like that, the tablets and the laptops and TV screens and stuff like that. But I'm sure very often this technology will start becoming common in building industry as well for the major benefits that it gives. And once it starts coming in, I'm sure we'll have a lot of specifications being rewritten for this particular purpose. Now this is another experimental project which is already built, by the way. This project takes inspiration of what we call nowadays a cross-pollination between two diverse fields. What it does is, it takes in the biological side of the world and brings it in the construction world. If you see the detail of the project, it's basically developed by SSC Germany, an institute which is working very closely on the glass technology and stuff like that, and then Arup and all were also involved in that. Now what it does is, by the way, it's a pilot project where the bioreactive facade was introduced on a building. Now what it means is that this particular facade will basically bring in the microorganisms in picture in a way where you create a facade which is breathing, which is sort of going very close to nature, which is mimicking the advantages that you get from the nature. Something still at the experimental stage, and it is still to develop into a full-fledged facade system. But yes, it is being done right now by these German consultancy firms and all. Colt International is another one who is involved in this particular pilot project. And if you see this whole project, even on internet you can try to search for this information. It actually gives a growing medium for some of these microorganisms. Now I don't know how many of you have interacted with the engineers in the Expo Pavilion of Germany, but I had a chance to talk to an engineer there who said that we are also trying to put an idea where the microorganisms, certain type of algae and bacteria, can breed in the cavity between the two glasses. The reason being very simple, that they want these bacteria or these microbes to generate certain things which will take away the whole health hazard in a building. Something I could not understand at the beginning, but as they started explaining that sometimes you have to simply rely on the family of same people to take care of the problems that are caused by the others. Like for example, if you have a virus issue, if you have contamination issues inside the hospitals and stuff like that, you create another virus who will simply nullify that particular negative effect. Something very interesting for me, but at a very beginner's level. I am not really sure of how far it will go, but they are doing these experiments right now. And there is another institute in Germany called Fraunhofer Institute that's also working on such things. And hopefully something we will start seeing in the field of healthcare, where the facade will start contributing to the conditions inside and outside of the building to improve the health overall for people like us. And this is the last one which I wanted to present. Again, this came out of certain experimentations. This gentleman called Neri Oxman and MIT Media Lab in US tried to work out a technology where you can 3D print a glass, because the next step of that is where they want to 3D print the whole facade system. At the moment, they are able to print something in the form of a vase or in the form of, say, a table or artifact or stuff like that. But there is something that comes out of it where the whole building technology that is going in the form of 3D modeling and 3D printing side may start becoming more holistic, because now you are possibly talking of facades being printed in the labs and just brought on site just to get installed, or possibly the whole module itself will get printed in the lab and then you just simply put it on the site. So the reason of making some of these pointers in front of you people is to put up a question: how far we can go? What is it that we all together can put in the field of glass, in the field of construction? Because I talk from the point of view of a construction person. I'm in this particular field. I don't know about many other fields which are associated with glass. But how much can we all do, and where all the boundaries can be pushed? So I would just simply say that the answer to that, in my opinion, is to simply accept the fact that nothing that is being put on paper in the form of those specifications and warranties and guarantees and technical stuff and whatever is sacrosanct. The idea is to find those gaps, to find where we can challenge those limitations, which are right now seen as limitations, and go ahead, break those rules, and get something out of it. We may fail collectively, we may fail individually, but I'm sure like 30 years down the line, some of these things will actually start becoming part of our lives. And we may start having another session in the same conference room where the industry experts then would show us something that is far more advanced than this. And we'll be sitting maybe in front of them thinking that 30 years back or 40 years back, we were trying to think of something which was achieved by them maybe in just 5 years, and now we are here trying to just, look at everything in awe. I think, let's push ourselves, and the whole, idea of putting things in front of all of you is to convey a very simple request that let us all work together and find solutions to things that we otherwise start seeing as a problem, and give a different vision to this whole industry. I mean, the glass industry is a wonderful industry, a very versatile industry, and it has a very bright future. The whole idea is all of us should simply start contributing to it, and we should push our limits, the limits of all these industry experts, and get something out of it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Ashish, for a lively presentation, informative and highlighting technologies that enhance energy efficiency and how these global technologies can be integrated in the Middle East, especially in UAE, which is at the forefront of construction and building-like development. So thank you very much.